Thank you for being here today. I believe you're not here by accident. I believe God brought you here because he wants to remind you of something very powerful. He is still in the business of turning broken things into beautiful ones. Let me tell you something right now. You don't have to pretend you've got it all together to get God's attention. You don't have to clean yourself up, fix every mistake, or hide all your pain before he'll notice you. God sees your brokenness right where you are. He knows what you're going through, and he's not afraid of your mess. Some of you are carrying things that are heavy, real heavy. You've been trying to hold it all in, put on a smile, keep moving like nothing's wrong, but inside, you're tired. You're worn out. You feel like no one truly sees what's going on inside your heart. But I want to remind you today, God sees you. Not the version you showed everyone else. Not just the version that shows up to church, smiles at your neighbors, or keeps pushing through the day. He sees you. The one who cries at night when nobody else is around. The one who feels like giving up but somehow keeps showing up. The one who's questioning if things will ever really get better. And the beautiful thing is, he doesn't look at you with disappointment. He looks at you with love, with compassion, with a heart that aches to help you. He sees every crack, every scar, every broken piece, and he says, I can work with that. I think sometimes we believe that God only works in our strength, that he's only proud of us when we're doing well, when we're strong, when we're walking in victory. But that's not the God we serve. God often does his best work when we're at our weakest. When we finally come to the end of ourselves and say, God, I can't do this without you. That's when healing begins. That's when restoration starts. Not when we act like everything is fine, but when we get honest. When we invite him into the places we've tried to hide. You know, for a long time in my own life, I didn't even realize how much pain I was carrying. I had learned how to survive. I had built up walls. I had become strong on the outside, but inside there was a lot of brokenness. Things from my past, things I didn't want to talk about. God is a God of intimacy. He doesn't just want surface level relationship with us. He wants access to the deep places, the tender places, the wounded places. He wants to come into the middle of our pain and say, I'm not leaving. I'm going to walk with you through this. Sometimes people think God won't meet them in their brokenness because they think they've gone too far, messed up too much, or stayed stuck for too long. But let me tell you something. There's no such thing as too far gone with God. There's no such thing as too broken for him. In fact, some of the most powerful people in the Bible were the ones who had been deeply broken. But God saw them, he called them, and he healed them. He's doing the same thing for you. It starts with being honest with him. You don't have to have the right words. You don't need a perfect prayer. Just tell him how you feel. Tell him what's hurting. Open up that heart of yours and let him in. Because healing doesn't start when we feel better. Healing starts when we give God permission to move. You might be thinking, but I'm afraid. I've been hurt before. I don't want to open up again. And I get that. I really do. Sometimes it's scary to be vulnerable, even with God. But the safest place you can be is in his presence. He's not going to shame you. He's not going to scold you. He's going to love you. He's going to comfort you. And he's going to start putting the pieces back together. Some of you need to hear this. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to say, God, I'm broken. That's not a sign of weakness. It's the beginning of healing. When we come to God in that place of truth, that place of raw honesty, he doesn't reject us. He embraces us. He holds us close and begins to whisper truth into all the lies we've believed. Lies like, I'm not good enough. Lies like, God doesn't care about me. Lies like, I'll always be this way. God comes in and replaces those lies with his truth. He says, you are loved, you are chosen, you are not alone, and I have a plan for your life that's bigger than your pain. We don't have to clean ourselves up before we come to him. We come broken, and he does the cleaning. We come wounded, and he does the healing. We come empty, and he fills us up. So if you feel like your heart is in pieces today, if your life feels like it's falling apart, I want you to know this. God sees you right here, right now, and he's not looking away. He's leaning in. He's reaching out. And he's ready to start the work of healing if you'll let him. He's not asking you to fix yourself. He's asking you to trust him. Now, I wish I could stand up here and tell you that healing always happens in an instant, that one prayer fixes everything, one moment changes every feeling, and one touch from God erases all the pain. But the truth is, healing is often a process. It's a journey. And it's one we walk day by day, sometimes moment by moment, with God right by our side. I think we all love the idea of instant results. We live in a world where everything is fast. Fast food, fast answers, fast fixes. So when we come to God, we sometimes expect him to work the same way. We think, God, I've prayed. Why am I still hurting? Why am I still struggling with the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same fears? And if we're not careful, we'll start to believe the lie that because it didn't happen instantly, God must not be working. But let me encourage you today, just because you don't see progress right away doesn't mean healing isn't happening. God works in deep places. And sometimes the deeper the wound, the longer the healing. Think about a physical injury. You get a little scrape, it heals in a couple of days, but if you break a bone or have surgery, that recovery takes time. Emotional and spiritual wounds can be the same way. There are layers to healing. God begins by uncovering the hurt, then he starts to gently remove the lies, the fear, the shame, the guilt, one layer at a time. It's not because he can't heal you all at once, but because he loves you enough to walk you through a transformation that lasts. You see, healing isn't just about feeling better, it's about being made whole. And that takes time. Sometimes God will let us walk through a season where we learn to trust him deeper, where we have to lean on him every single day, where we have to dig into his word and believe his promises, even when our feelings don't match up yet. That kind of healing builds faith. It builds character. It builds endurance. I remember going through seasons where I felt like I was taking one step forward and two steps back. I'd have a breakthrough one day, and the next day I'd feel like I was drowning in the same emotions all over again. And I'd cry out, God, why is this taking so long? And you know what he whispered back to me? Because I'm doing a complete work. He's not just trying to relieve our pain. He's trying to restore our hearts. If you're still in the process right now, if you've prayed and cried and waited and it still hurts, I want you to know that you're not alone and you're not failing. You're healing. It's okay if you're still limping a little. It's okay if some days are harder than others. That doesn't mean God has left you. That means you're human, and he's still working. Don't judge your healing by how you feel today. Judge it by the truth of what God says about you. He says you are more than a conqueror. He says you are being renewed day by day. He says he is working all things together for your good. That's not just wishful thinking. That's a promise. Sometimes healing is slow because God wants to teach us how to depend on him. Not just when we're desperate, but when we're tired, when we're discouraged, when we're tempted to give up. It's in that process that we develop spiritual muscles we didn't even know we had. We learn how to pray when we don't feel like it. We learn how to speak truth even when our emotions are all over the place. We learn how to praise in the middle of the pain, not just after the victory. That's what makes your healing beautiful. Not just the outcome, but the journey. The moments where you kept showing up even when you were tired. The days you held on to hope even when your heart was heavy. The quiet moments with God when no one else knew how hard it was, but you kept trusting anyway. That's where the real healing happens. And listen, even on the days when you feel like you're not making any progress, I want to remind you, God is not disappointed in you. He's not sitting there with a stopwatch, wondering why you're not healed faster. He's patient. He's kind. He's loving. He walks beside you every step, even when you're crawling, even when you stumble, even when you take a step backward. He's the kind of God who says, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. Not, I'll stay with you as long as you're making progress. But I'm here for the long haul. So if you're in that in-between place right now, between the pain and the promise, keep going. Keep trusting. Keep leaning into his presence. Don't let the enemy convince you that nothing's happening. Don't let your emotions dictate your faith. And don't you dare give up just because it's taking longer than you thought it would. You're not going to stay broken. You're not going to stay in this valley. But the journey through it is part of your healing, is part of your testimony. One day you'll look back and see how far you've come, and you'll realize that every tear, every prayer, every waiting season was worth it. Healing is happening. Even now. Even here. Even when you can't feel it. God is faithful. One of the most powerful things God will ever do in your life is turn your pain into a testimony. And I know when you're in the middle of the mess, when you're still crying, still struggling, still trying to understand what happened and why, it doesn't feel like anything good could ever come from it. But that's where God shows up with his redeeming love and does something we could never do on our own. He takes what the enemy meant for harm and uses it for good. He takes the broken pieces, the ugly parts of our story, the things we thought disqualified us, and he turns them into something beautiful, something meaningful, something. You might be sitting here today thinking, I don't want anyone to know what I've been through. Maybe you've been ashamed of your past. Maybe you felt like if people really knew your story, they'd look at you differently. Maybe you've tried to bury it and forget about it, thinking that's the only way to move on. But what if I told you that the very thing you're trying to hide is the thing God wants to use? You see, the enemy wants us to keep our pain in the dark. He wants us to live in shame and silence because he knows that as long as we do, we'll never fully walk in the freedom God has for us. But when we bring that pain into the light, when we give it to God and let him heal it, then it no longer has power over us. In fact, it becomes a weapon we can use to help someone else. I've seen it over and over again. People who have gone through things they thought would break them. Abuse, addiction, betrayal, deep grief. They started saying, I've been there. I know how this feels, but let me tell you what God did for me. And suddenly, that thing the enemy used to try to destroy them became the very thing God used to bring hope to others. That's the beauty of a testimony. It's not just a story of what happened to you. It's a story of what God did in you. It's a living, breathing reminder of his goodness and faithfulness. And people need to hear it. Because sometimes we think we have to be perfect to help others. But people don't relate to perfection. They relate to real. They relate to honesty. When you're willing to be vulnerable about your own journey, it gives someone else permission to say, if God did it for them, maybe he can do it for me too. And that's how healing multiplies. That's how your story becomes part of someone else's breakthrough. Now, I'm not saying you have to share everything with everyone. Wisdom matters. But I am saying, don't underestimate the power of your testimony. Don't let the enemy convince you that your story is too messy, too small, or too broken to matter. Because in God's hands, it's none of those things. It's powerful. It's valuable. It's part of your calling. You know, when Jesus rose from the grave, he still had scars. You ever thought about that? He could have come back completely flawless. But he chose to keep the marks in his hands and feet, not because he needed them, but because we did. His scars tell a story of love, sacrifice, and victory. And ours do too. Your scars are proof that you made it. They're reminders that what tried to kill you didn't win. That you've been through the fire, but you're still standing. And when you share those scars, they speak louder than any polished, perfect version of yourself ever could. You may not feel ready to share your story right now, and that's okay. Healing takes time. But know this, when the time comes, God will use your journey in ways you never imagined. There are people who need what you've lived through. They need your perspective. They need your hope. They need your voice. Sometimes we look at our past and ask, why did I have to go through that? And we may never have all the answers on this side of heaven. But I do know this, God never wastes pain. Never. If you give it to him, he'll use every moment, every tear, every battle to build something that brings him glory and brings others hope. So if you're wondering whether your story matters, let me tell you it does. It matters more than you know. Don't let shame silence you. Don't let fear keep you quiet. Let God redeem it. Let him turn the broken into beautiful. Let him use your scars to point others to his healing power. Because when someone hears your testimony, when they hear that you've been through it and found freedom, it reminds them that there's hope for their story too. That's the power of God's healing. It doesn't just restore us, it releases us to go and be a light for someone else. And that, my friend, is something truly beautiful. When God heals us, He doesn't just restore us to what we were before the pain, before the hurt, before the brokenness. No, he does something far greater than that. He takes the ashes of our lives and turns them into something far more beautiful than we could have ever imagined. He doesn't just patch us up and leave us the same. He makes us stronger, wiser, and more vibrant. He doesn't simply heal us to make us okay. Again, he heals us to make us whole, to make us new, to make us even more than we were before. It's like a piece of pottery that gets broken. When it's broken, it's worthless, right? It's shattered, scattered, and in pieces. But then the artist, who knows how to work with the brokenness, takes the shattered pieces and carefully puts them back together. And when they're done, that piece of pottery isn't just repaired, it's transformed. It's now unique. It's now more valuable. It's now more beautiful because it has a story. It has history. It has scars that have been healed and put back together in a way that adds character and depth. That's what God does in our lives. He takes the brokenness, the things that have been shattered in us, and he doesn't just make us okay again. He restores us into something better. He makes us whole in a way that we couldn't have been without the experience of the healing journey. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it hurts sometimes. Yes, we might feel like we'll never be the same. But the truth is, you won't be the same. You'll be better. You'll be more resilient. You'll be more compassionate. You'll be stronger than you were before because of what God did in you through the pain. And I want you to hear this clearly today. God is not in the business of just fixing you. He's in the business of making you whole. He doesn't just want to heal you. He wants to use that healing to bring about greater purpose in your life. He wants to take the things that have broken you and use them to shape you into the person he always intended you to be. It's like when you look at someone who's been through a really hard time and you see the wisdom in their eyes. You see the strength in their character. You see the compassion they now carry for others. That's what happens when we allow God to take our brokenness and turn it into something beautiful. It doesn't just affect us. It affects everyone around us. Our healing doesn't just impact our own hearts. It becomes a testimony to others. It becomes a living example of God's grace and power to restore. People see that you've been through it, and they see that you didn't stay broken, and that gives them hope. I know that sometimes we look at our lives and wonder, can God really make this beautiful? Can he really redeem this mess? And I get it. When we're in the middle of the pain, it's hard to see how anything good could come from it. But I want to assure you today, God is in the business of making beauty out of ashes. He's in the business of turning what the enemy meant for harm into something that glorifies him. The pain that seems senseless, the heartbreak that seems like it'll never heal, the betrayal that cuts so deep, all of it in his hands can be used for something greater. There's a verse in Isaiah that says to provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. That's God's promise to you. He's not just going to fix you. He's going to give you something better. He's going to take the ashes of your sorrow and crown you with beauty. He's going to give you joy where there was mourning and a garment of praise where there was despair. But you have to let him work in the process. Sometimes we want to rush through the pain. We want to skip the healing part and jump straight to the beauty. But beauty takes time. It takes patience. It takes layers. And it takes God's perfect timing. The moment we give our pain to him, we begin a process of transformation. A process where God takes everything that was meant to hurt us, everything that was meant to defeat us. and he uses it to build us up. He uses it to make us stronger. He uses it to mold us into the person we are meant to become. Now, this doesn't mean life will be perfect once we're healed. It doesn't mean we won't face other challenges or struggles. But it does mean that God has a purpose for every part of our story. It means that the scars we carry aren't just reminders of pain. They're reminders of how far we've come. They're evidence of God's healing power at work in our lives. And the more we allow him to work in us, the more we reflect his love, his grace, and his beauty to the world. The beauty God creates in us isn't just for us. It's for others too. Because when people see the transformation, when they see how God has healed you, they will begin to believe that God can heal them too. They will begin to believe that if God can bring beauty out of your brokenness, he can do the same for them. Our lives become a living testimony of God's power to restore and redeem. We become vessels of hope, of encouragement, of love, showing others that no matter how deep their pain, no matter how broken their heart, God is more than able to turn their ashes into beauty. And one day you'll look back at the journey and realize that the beautiful person you are today, stronger, more compassionate, more loving, is the result of what God has done in your life through the pain. You'll see that the beauty he's created in you is a reflection of his grace, his healing power, and his deep love for you. And you'll be able to stand with confidence, knowing that no matter what comes your way, you are more than capable of overcoming it with God's help, because he has made you beautiful. So don't be afraid of the process. Don't be afraid of the healing. Embrace it, because the beauty that comes from God's hands is greater than anything we could ever create on our own. And when it's all said and done, you'll be able to look back and say, God truly makes all things beautiful in his time.